Using a tool like Midjourney is really a brand new wave of interacting and creativity itself with a medium. Generally, with any other kind of medium, let's say photography, you're holding a camera and you're making all of the creative choices with the settings, the framing, the composition, how the lighting is. With something like Midjourney, you're using a prompt to push the model in a specific direction. And most of the time, you're gonna have an image in your mind that you're trying to use words to have Midjourney output that image, and most of the time it's not gonna output the exact image you're wanting because you're exporting some of your creativity in this creation process to a third party. And then that third party, Midjourney in this case, is then outputting that final image. So let's dive deeper into settings to see what's really going on underneath the hood with these different parameters. And what we're gonna focus on now is raw mode and our level of stylization. I just wanna mention this bottom row of buttons. Now, these are all gonna affect the speed at which Midjourney is creating your image. Now, relax mode is going to be the slowest, fast mode is going to be faster, turbo mode is going to be clearly the fastest mode. Now, the faster modes are going to use more GPU time, so that's just something to keep in mind for your subscription. The different plans have a different amount of fast GPU time and relaxed GPU time, so it is something to consider when changing your speed settings. But with that said, let's now hop back into raw mode and our stylization levels. So what I want to do is set it to raw mode, which is essentially going to completely turn off all of Midjourney's own creative interpretation and stylization that it adds on top of your image and your prompt. What turning on raw mode is going to do is remove all of Midjourney's additional creative choices and freedoms that it takes when it's creating your image. So it's going to be a lot more of a plane when it comes to details. Now, stylization is similar. This influences the amount of creativity that Midjourney is adding to your prompt. For example, low is going to be the lowest amount of creativity and additions. Very high is going to be clearly the highest. So let's now see what this effect has. So I'm going to type in the /imagine, and I'm just going to keep it really simple. I'm going to use the word sphere. We're not going to do any bells and whistles. We're going to keep it ultra simplified. Now, while that's rendering in the background, we can see our style is raw and our stylization is set to 50, which is the lowest setting. What I'm going to do now is undo raw mode and put the stylization to high. And we're gonna do the same exact prompt. What this does is it shows how Midjourney is really creating things underneath the hood and really how important the settings are when you're creating your different prompts. So let's first look at our raw style. You can see not a whole lot of creative interpretation. Very monochromatic. Still decent looking raw images. But this would be just, let's say, a version 1 of an edit if you were a graphic designer or a photographer building this from scratch. This doesn't have any post-production processing or really any creative liberties taken in the creation process, which, if this is what you're looking for, can be really great settings. Now, let's take the same exact prompt, just the word sphere, but with the stylization set to high, and we can see we have a whole different world. This has got a desert in the background, some interesting things going on the inside of the sphere. This one's got a whole castle on the inside, very Lord of the Rings, and we have 4 different creative interpretations, almost as if we had 4 different artists that were hired to just create whatever they wanted from our base prompt, just the word sphere. Now, you can use these different settings for all kinds of prompts, whether you're creating something for a personal project or a professional project, whether you want to go in that fantasy direction or you want something a lot more realistic, you're going to want to dial these up and down accordingly. If you want something more real life, you should probably set the stylization to low. If you want Midjourney to not make decisions for you. For example, we didn't tell it to add a castle. We didn't tell it to add clouds, the desert, water reflection with the person standing next to it. It took those creative liberties because its creativity was turned all the way up. So if I want to have complete creative control, I'm going to have a very long, detailed prompt with the creativity set to low. And I'm going to type in exactly what I want. Give me a silver sphere floating in space with stars in the distance and the sun shining through in the background. With the creativity set to low, but with my exact prompt being given, that's when Midjourney is going to do more of what we want versus taking its own creative liberties. Now let's move to the variation of creativity between reiterations. Now, this is done by the high variation mode and the low variation mode. I'm going to set it to low, and let's go ahead and choose one of these images. We've been talking about the castle a lot, so let's go ahead and choose our castle image, and I'm going to make a new set of 4 variations to that image by hitting V4. And while that's rendering in the background, I'm going to go back up to our settings, and now I'm going to change the high variation mode and turn that on. We're going to do the same exact thing. We're going to create a new set of variations for V4. So now let's take a look at our different variations. We have our variation subtle and our variation strong. So the subtle, we see little changes, basically the same shape of the castle, very similar background. This is great for if we just don't want to completely remix our image all the way, we just want to make tiny adjustments. Now with the variation strong, again, Midjourney is taking more creative liberties. So really, the main takeaway from this lesson is that depending on your desired output and how much creativity you want to give to Midjourney and how detailed you want to be with your prompts, you should be adjusting your stylization and variation accordingly to get your desired image. And if you want to keep things more raw, more realistic, then you can turn that creativity down and you can be a lot more specific inside of your prompts.